Good evening, everyone. I'm Claire Kellett. Steve and Courtney are off tonight. The mass shooting happened right along the Las Vegas Strip. Now, here's a layout of where it all happened. The shooter was in the Mandalay Bay Hotel. His room was on the 32nd floor. Now, from there, he was able to break out a window right there and shoot at the people below. News 4's Alexis Soto spoke with two friends who were in that same hotel when the gunfire started.
Claire, the two men from St. Charles just returned to their hotel room to change. They were about to go back out for the night when the gunshots rang out.
Holy
This is video from the Mandalay Bay on the 5th floor Sunday night. Anthony Williams and Kylan Maheri are in Las Vegas celebrating Williams' 21st birthday. We FaceTimed with them from their hotel room.
We were just about to walk out, and the TV was up kind of loud, and then we heard like,
The friends from St. Charles didn't know what to think as the gunshots kept coming.
Dude was shooting at least probably 400 bullets in 15 minutes. We can see like the main stage.
The shooter was on the Mandalay's 32nd floor, shooting down at the music festival. In the daylight hours, these friends can see just how close they were to the gunfire.
I see the window was like right there. He's just shooting down there.
Williams' mom was down near the concert.
My mom was actually like probably 100 feet away from the main stage down there. She called me like crying and whatever, and she's like, I'm running away.
She was uninjured, and Williams and Maheri continued watching the horror from their window.
There's no way this is happening.
Hours later, police showed up at their door.
SWAT team came into our room at like 4 in the morning.
They said right now Vegas is eerily quiet. The casinos feel empty. The only sound they can think about is that of the gunfire that rained down on the Strip.
The shots were just never ending.
The two St. Charles natives are set to fly back to St. Louis tomorrow night. They told me tonight they're ready to leave right now.
area out here from NetApp and Cisco and other companies for this conference. And I had checked in about 20 minutes before and was in my room and was just looking out the window. And, the concert, I'm on about the 7th floor of Mandalay, and the concert is right outside of our window. And so all of a sudden, I just heard this machine gun fire just erupt. And from our vantage point here, it was pretty obvious that it was gunfire. It was very loud, just very rapid, and lots of it. And then, it was kind of unreal at first. It's like, what the heck's going on? And I thought, hey, there's something going on. The police or somebody. I mean, I really thought because of the automatic fire that it was the police involved. Had no idea, and it was unreal. And it went on for 15 to 20 minutes, just constant. And it's just now sinking in. And I got woken up by SWAT teams here about 3:45. Coming in my room, and they're going through every room in the hotel at this point, and it's still really sinking in.
John, what are you having to do now in this hotel? Are they moving you out of the hotel? And can you describe what you saw out on the street after you heard all this shooting occur?
Yeah, right now, we're on complete lockdown. I'm getting a couple of messages from my company, from NetApp, telling us, what to do and what to impact. And right now we're supposed to shelter in place still. It's a big hotel. And, they just swept my room, and I'm on the 7th floor, which is one of the lower floors. And they just came through at 3:45. So I imagine it's going to take them a fairly long time to get through this entire hotel. But, once the shooting started, it took maybe 5 minutes later, as I was looking out, it was dark, of course, and you could just see just hundreds of police cars and lights and just converging on this area. And so at that point, I knew, something pretty serious. And honestly, I thought I had no idea that it was coming from Mandalay, where I'm staying. I thought it was down maybe at the street level and over by the concert, and it wasn't until later that they revealed that it was above our heads, which is, I guess, why it was so loud.
John, what did you do when you first heard the gunfire? Did you retreat into your room as far as you could, or what did you do? And my second question is, how many folks from our area are out there with you for this conference?
Yeah, when it first started, to be honest, I didn't think I was in any kind of danger. And again, the danger element didn't really sit in until, I guess after it was all over. I knew the helicopters were starting to come in, and all of the police were around, but with the way the compound is situated, you see police all around the area, but you can't really tell that they're in your hotel. So I never really felt like I was in danger, and so now looking back, it's a lot more dangerous situation, and I probably would have taken cover and not been looking out the window the whole time at all the police cars. But there were different explosion types, like there was the machine gun fire, but then there was also, it sounded like shotgun burst and all kinds of different things. And I thought for sure that there was like multiple shooters going on, and it sounded like some were further away, and I know they're going to work all that stuff out, but that's kind of the story from there. As far as number of people, I know probably a dozen or so at least, just from my department and my organization at NetApp that are out here, and I think there's about 6,000 or 7,000 total from NetApp and the customers and partners. So I know a lot from Cisco are out here as well, from the RTP area. So I can't really comment on the numbers, but it's a fair amount of people, and we're all staying at Mandalay.
John, one final question for you, and thank you so much for sharing this just horrible experience with us. We're so happy you're okay. What goes through your mind now that we know that this is the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history?
I just want to go home.
That pretty much sums it up. And John, let me just ask you one quick question. Your hometown is what, Raleigh or
Oxford.
Oxford, okay.
Yeah.
And your job is, how can we classify your job as a?
I'm a product manager with NetApp, so I work with our customers and partners to help shape what our products look like.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate your taking the time to share us your account of what happened. What a horrible, horrible day in American history. But we thank you for shedding light on a very important event that we need to investigate and examine probably for years to come. And John, we're so thankful you are doing well.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thousands of people were on the Las Vegas Strip and witnessed the horror when the shooting took place, some for business, others for pleasure. WRAL's Amanda Lamb spoke with people from the Triangle area today who were there. Amanda joins us with their chilling accounts of what happened. Amanda.
David, they tell me it was total chaos. People running for cover, people hiding in hotel rooms. They didn't know where the shots were coming from. The people I talked to are physically okay, but the emotional toll of what they witnessed is just starting to set in.
These images may seem unreal, but if you were on the Las Vegas Strip Sunday night, it's a reality you will never forget.
All of a sudden, I just heard this machine gun fire just erupt.
John McAuley, who was in Las Vegas for a conference with his RTP-based employer NetApp, was on the 7th floor of Mandalay Bay.
It was very loud, just very rapid, and lots of it.
McAuley saw hundreds of officers converging on the scene.
I mean, it went on for 15 to 20 minutes, just constant, and I mean, it was, it's just now sinking in, and I got woken up by SWAT teams here about 3:45 coming in my room.
McAuley is staying for the conference, but he has talked to his family, and he can't wait to get home. And a few minutes ago, I just received this statement from NetApp. They have 7,000 people at this conference. They say they're deeply troubled, and they are concerned about the safety and well-being of their attendees at this conference. It's an urgent priority. They're trying to make an accounting of everyone. They still haven't done that yet, and they will bring out updates as they become available. So very scary for a lot of people from our area who are out there, David.
Yeah, it continues to be. Amanda Lamb, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Phil Ponce. The nation woke up today to news of a Las Vegas music festival that became a killing field. The death toll tonight stands at 59, with some 527 more people injured. Authorities are trying to learn more about the man they say killed himself after inflicting the carnage. 16 guns were found in his hotel room, many more at his home, along with thousands of rounds of ammunition. One of the witnesses staying at the Mandalay Bay Hotel is someone we know well in Chicago tonight. Margie Newman is a freelance producer who has worked with WTTW for years and was in Las Vegas for a convention. We began by asking her to give us an idea of where she was as she witnessed the massacre. Could you please show us, by just moving your camera, where you are in relation to where the shooting took place?
Sure. I'm right across the street from the site. I had seen yesterday they were setting up the concert just across diagonally from the hotel. And this is the Mandalay Bay Hotel.
We just saw the back of what appears to be the stage. Is that where the crowd was in front of that stage?
That is correct.
And so tell us what you experienced when you first realized that something was not right.
Sure. I had just gotten back to my hotel room after a long day. I had traveled in yesterday morning, and it was about 10:30, and I was just kind of setting my things down when I heard what I could only describe as jackhammering. And I thought, Vegas, like it's 10:30 at night and now this. It didn't occur to me for a little while what was really happening. So I went to the window. I thought it was like an air conditioning unit maybe, and it was volley after volley after volley. It would be about like 10 or 15 seconds of da 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 da, and then it would stop, and then da 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 da. And I looked outside to see, there's a construction site across the street. And I thought maybe there's some construction happening late at night, and then I noticed the sirens, and again Sunday night. And then it all sort of, my brain was on a delay from what was really happening. I knew there was a concert across the street because I had seen them setting up when I arrived yesterday. And suddenly I saw people running, like really running. And I tried to tell myself they're just people leaving the concert, But then I saw people laying on the ground. And when it hit me, I actually hit the ground in my hotel room. I was right in front of the window, and I could tell whatever it was close.
And you say people were running. Where were they running to?
Everywhere. It was the concert grounds at that time, when it first happened, were lit. So you could see this sea of people, and some people were streaming up the middle, and then you could see that people were laying down. It was quite frightening.
Could you tell what law enforcement's reaction was? When did that become apparent?
Yeah, so I can't tell you exactly when during the sequence of volleys, but definitely while it was very active still. So one of my first thoughts was, if that is gunfire, if that is what it looks like, those law enforcement vehicles, and they were just starting to converge from everywhere, were driving right into it and surrounding the area.
Margie, how long did the volleys last?
It seems like about 10 minutes. It's hard to say. I didn't mark it, but I'm guessing it was about 10 minutes.
So you're in the Mandalay Hotel. At what point, or did you ever realize that the shooter was in your hotel?
Yeah. So what happened was I called my husband when I started realizing it might be gunfire, and I said, I'm afraid. I don't know what's happening. And we were both saying, where can we find something about this? So we started looking on Twitter and saw a reporter from the local newspaper was headed to the Mandalay Bay for an active shooter. And again, my brain kind of knew that because the sounds were just all around me. And then I think the police scanner information that people were sharing on Twitter said shooters on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay, and I'm on the 26th floor. So I started looking up, at the roof. I think I might have said I turned out all the lights in my room. I locked the door. I didn't know. We were hearing a lot of things like that there were other shooters at first in different locations. So I didn't know if it was a terrorist attack or what was happening.
So in relation to your room, you can actually see where the shooter's room was now. Now that the morning after. Could you show us, because the Mandalay Bay is kind of a V-shaped hotel, show us with your camera the room or the area where the shooter was staying.
Right, so I'm on the 26th floor, and if you look up to the top of the hotel, and it's small in the frame, but it's about center, there's a broken window, and I sent a still that shows it closer. Windows, the drapes were kind of blowing out this morning. They said they were still investigating, but you can see that it's basically, right in the middle of the frame over there.
And I understand that later on you were able to fall asleep after things, quote, settled down a little bit, but you were awakened later. What happened?
Yeah, it was a strange night. When I went to sleep, I had been up for about 24 hours because I had traveled very early, and at that point they were first saying 2 dead, and then I heard 20 dead. I knew that this was going to be a terrible outcome because of what I'd seen. So I went to sleep, but very fitfully, and then at 4 a.m. Or 4:30, I suddenly heard a lot of shouting in the hallways, and my door was banged on with what, I don't know if it was a fist or something else, but I stumbled to the door and I looked out the peephole and I saw 4 very heavily armed police, and they were dressed like for combat, like you'd see in Afghanistan, heavy body armor, big guns, and they were basically checking to see if people were safe, but not knowing that quite yet. I kind of approached the peephole and I saw them pointing at my feet, and I said hello, so they wouldn't think I was, I didn't know if they were looking for bad guys still or what. So they just said, it's police, making sure everyone's okay. And I said yes, and they went away, and I stumbled back into bed. And then I got up this morning and heard the higher count.
And in terms of a lockdown, I understand that guests were not allowed to leave their rooms. What was your experience?
Yeah, so I had gotten to my room just before it all hit. When I realized what was happening and I saw the first reporter text that it was an active shooter, I immediately texted my friends who I'm here with and said, don't leave wherever you're at, don't go near any windows, there's an active shooter, it's not a joke. And we all shared via text, because at first it was just what we each had heard, and some of them were at a restaurant downstairs and had been evacuated to a kitchen. Others were outside of the hotel, couldn't come back. I mean, this was an active crime scene for quite a while. There were helicopters flying around, like right outside this window, with their spotlights all over the place. They were looking for, I think, an accomplice. Heard shortly after all of the shooting sounds, and I heard a few sounds at the end that were different, and then the shooting sounds stopped. And heard shortly after that they had killed a suspect in the hotel. It really has me thinking today about the devastation that one gunman can do with firepower of that sort. And just seeing that crowd, they were absolutely helpless. They were sitting ducks. And it has me thinking about gun control. And I know people are saying send prayers. I think people should think about their votes.
Again, that was Margie Newman at the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas.
Columbia native who now lives in Anderson County was staying inside the hotel where all of this happened. Our Chuck Ringwalt was able to connect with her via Skype earlier today and has her story.
It was so surreal to be watching the television and see the room where this happened and know that I was just right there, and that the hotel that's on the screen, I'm in that hotel.
Sims Brooks was staying only a few floors below where the shooter opened fire.
I didn't know what it was. Honestly, I thought that it was probably fireworks across the street.
The Columbia native had a work conference in the morning, so she put in earplugs and fell asleep.
All of a sudden, my door comes bursting open, and it's the Las Vegas Police Department.
They asked two questions: are you alone and are you safe?
It was super fast when they were there, and they slammed the door and off they went.
Checking every room on every floor.
My very first thought was it has to be a shooting.
As the hours passed, she learned more information and walked out of the hotel.
It made me physically ill.
She decided not to attend the conference. She thought back to a girl she saw the afternoon before.
I saw this girl by the convention center that afternoon wearing a t-shirt that said that she belonged to the working class, which is, you know, a country song. And I remember that, and she was the first person that I thought of, and I thought, you know, that girl could be one of those people down there. There aren't even any words really to describe that at all.
Sims says she plans to return to the upstate sometime tomorrow. In Columbia, Chuck Ringwalt, News 19 WLTX.
Township man is staying at Mandalay Bay and says he was just 2 floors down and 1 room over from that shooter. This morning he spoke with WFMZ's Bo Coltnow, who's live in the newsroom with more on this. Bo?
Alexander, Ben Sweeney arrived in Las Vegas Sunday evening for a week-long work conference, and several hours later he had a first-hand view of the deadly chaos.
Boom, 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 boom. And it probably in each one of those sections, there was probably about 20, 25 shots. And then it would stop for a few seconds, and then you would hear more.
Salisbury Township's Ben Sweeney speaks to us via Skype in his hotel room on the 30th floor of Las Vegas's Mandalay Bay Hotel, just 2 floors down and 1 room over from where police say 64-year-old Stephen Paddock opened fire at a country music concert. Sweeney said he had virtually the same view, and at the time of the shooting had no idea if the bullets were coming from inside or outside the hotel.
I actually jumped in the tub here because I didn't know what else to do. I went in the tub, and then I started hearing helicopters, and I came back again, and the helicopters were shining their lights in pretty much right at me at one point.
And Sweeney, who was married a little more than a month ago, also told me for much of early this morning and last night he was on the phone with his wife, who's here in Allentown. He says he was so close to the shooter's room that he could hear police breach it this morning. Now, I will have more with his story tonight starting at 4, but for now, in the newsroom, Bo Coltnow, 69 News.
we know the shooter was on the 32nd floor of the hotel. My next guest was on the 30th floor. We've reached Ben Sweeney at the airport in Las Vegas. So, Ben, you were in the same hotel as the shooter. Where were you exactly when it happened?
Yeah, so I was in my room. I was about 2 floors and 1 room below him when everything started. So I was laying actually in my bed, and I first thought I heard fireworks. And I got up to look out at the concert because it sounded like it was coming from inside the room. So at that point, I wasn't sure what was going on. And when I heard the first 3 shots, I wasn't sure. After that, when I switched over to the automatic rifle, or whatever he had, I realized it was a gunner. But my thoughts more, it was shooting out at the concert. I thought he was shooting inside the hotel because the sound from me was coming through my door and through the walls inside the hotel. And then also ricocheting, the sound was bouncing off the glass back in that way too. So to me, I thought it was a person running through the hotel because I was so close to him, probably only about 30 feet away from him.
What did you do?
So at that point, I texted my wife, and I told her I think there was a shooter here, but there was nothing, there was no news or anything yet of what was going on. I was trying to feed through Twitter, trying to see if I could find any reports of anything. I finally saw one person mention something, and then when the second big burst of fire came, it started blowing up, and someone had mentioned that there was a shooter in Mandalay Bay, which is right where I was staying, about 2 floors and 1 room over from him. So, I had to lay on the floor, and then I was texting her for a little while. I didn't want to call because I didn't want to make sound, because I wasn't sure if he was in the room next to me, because it literally sounded like he was shooting from the room right next to me. So I stayed there for a little while. At one point I got up and I went over into the tub, just thinking maybe it was safer inside the tub there.
Can you just...
after that...
Go ahead.
I was saying, I was sitting there in the tub. At that point I had called her and I was talking to her on the phone. And she was hysterical, and I was trying to calm her down, but me myself, I was really scared as well because I wasn't sure what was going on. So I stayed in there for a little bit, and then I got back up and I walked up towards the window to try to see if I could see anything going on. I just saw cop cars everywhere, probably about 100, 200 of them swarming around Mandalay Bay and around the concert. And then helicopters start coming around the hotel. And they shone their lights right on, like right where I was sitting, right on me. And they blinded me with their beams. So I walked away from the window because I wasn't sure, if I don't want them to mistake me as a shooter or anything. So I backed away from the window at that point. I went back on my bed at that point. And there's still more gunshots. They seem to go on forever. Switching between the rat-a-tat-tats at the fast and then the slow, steady 3-round bursts, switching back and forth between them. So after a little while, everything stopped, and I wasn't sure what was going on still. Tons of cop activity. I heard shouting in the hall, yelling at people to put their arms up. I saw some people go through the hall with their ARs out. When I looked at the peephole, there was about 4 people in military fatigues that were walking by my room, shouting at people. After that, I heard a loud explosion. I wasn't sure if something was blowing up, if there was a bomb somewhere. At that point, I was on the bed, so I rolled off the bed onto the floor. I was still on the phone with my wife. I told her there was a loud explosion. I wasn't sure what was going on. And about 2 minutes later, there was a second loud explosion, which, later we found out that was them breaching, but I didn't hear any shots or any commands. I just heard the 2 explosions there. So that was eventful. After that, I stayed up. I couldn't get to sleep, obviously, until the news conference around 1:30 in the morning when they said that that he was deceased. So I finally tried to get to sleep for a few hours, but then around 4 o'clock in the morning, there was a knock on my door, and they announced themselves as the Metro Police, and they were doing a welfare check. Could they come in? And of course I said yes. And the next thing I knew, I had the lock on my door, but I guess they can still get in even with it locked if the lock doesn't do anything. And I had 3 people in military fatigues in my room telling me to keep my hands up. They were searching my room with flashlights and their guns out. So I guess they were doing their room by room search at that time. And I couldn't get back to sleep after that.
That sounds terrifying.
It definitely was very terrifying.
So now you are at the airport and you're waiting to board a flight to go home. How do you put something like this behind you?
Yeah, so I mean, I just got here last night. I got in at 6 o'clock last night. I was supposed to be here for the week for a work conference, but you know, hearing each one of those shots and knowing how many lives they ended, it just, you know, I can't think about it, because it's just knowing that those were the final seconds of someone's life, and so many of them. The amount of gunfire I heard there was just insurmountable. I mean, it seemed like hundreds of shots. And
was it deafening? Was it very loud?
Oh, it was very loud. I seriously felt like it was shooting in the room next to me. But like I said, he was 2 floors up and 1 room over. But those guns must have just been so powerful to be able to go, because I mean, that's probably about 200 yards plus 32 flights away from where he was shooting. They had to be real powerful weapons to go that far. It's not like a handgun. You know, I hear handguns or wherever, shooting ranges or whatnot. They're not that loud, but these guns were very, very loud.
Ben, appreciate you taking the time and safe travels home. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Ben Sweeney in Las Vegas. His room was just 2 floors below the gunman's.
An Emporia man says he feels lucky to be alive tonight. He was in Las Vegas when the shooting started.
He was actually in the same hotel as the gunman that killed dozens of people and injured hundreds more. KSNT News reporter Molly Pat spoke with the man from Las Vegas and with his wife in Emporia.
Floyd Conradi from Emporia is in Las Vegas on a business conference, staying at Mandalay Bay on floor 31, just 1 floor below the gunman. That's what Floyd first thought were fireworks.
Looked out the window, really didn't see anything. About that time the first volley ended, second volley started up. I looked out the window again. This time I actually heard debris hitting the windows. I thought it might have been fireworks on top of the hotel. About the third volley, I realized that no, it's actually gunshots.
Conradi says for just a second he questioned whether he'd get out alive. His wife says it's unsettling knowing how close he was to the shooter.
The stomach kind of went upside down. It was not a comfortable feeling, and of course my main thought was, is it done and over with?
Conradi was told to stay in his room. We talked with him in Las Vegas about the tragedy he watched unfold.
I could basically just see the overall of the concert area. You know, it was high enough up I couldn't see anything real detailed. Actually, I tried to stay away from the window the best I could, just to make sure that, you know, either from return fire or what, that I wasn't in a direct line.
We're very lucky. I feel very bad for the families that are not that lucky, and that weighs heavy on my husband and I.
Floyd says the atmosphere on Monday was not the Vegas that everybody knows, but it's slowly getting back to normal. In Emporia, Molly Pat, KSNT News.
And Conrad wasn't the only Kansan in Las Vegas when the massacre happened.
Bye.